All right, so it is 4 p.m. Mountain Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome to our webinar on supporting students with learning differences. If you would like to go ahead and follow along on your own computer, different tab or different screen while we go through this, you are more than welcome to. Just go ahead to formative.com and log in. Remember, you can always log in with Google, Clever, Microsoft, or just with your email username and password. A little bit about me when we get started today. My name is Katie Gilla. I am a Client Success Manager here with Formative. I am a former teacher. I taught a pre-K collaborative class, so kind of a combination of my special ed students as well as gen ed. I taught kindergarten. I was a SPED inclusion teacher for grades 1 through 5, and I was also an RTI specialist. I am a dog mom to 4 amazing rescues. If you hear them barking in the background, I apologize. They don't always behave. Born and raised in New England, but I've lived all over New York, Florida, Texas, California, and I am now in Colorado. Some things to know: this session is being recorded. We're scheduled for roughly 30 minutes. If you have any questions, please go ahead and type those questions into the chat. So we've got a lot to cover today. There's a lot of different ways Formative can be used to help those students with different needs. So we will look at using audio and video in content, questions, answers, as well as feedback, adding color overlays to text to support visual processing, assigning formatives to different groups of students, options for chunking the formative into smaller parts, collaborating with other teachers, and our brand new time accommodations feature. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. I am going to go pop over to my Formative tab. All right, so the first thing we're gonna look at is using those audio and video in context. As we know, those of us who've worked with students with special needs or have seen IEP, 504 plans, one of the most common accommodations is reading directions or questions aloud to students. And that can definitely be a challenge sometimes when you've got a whole classroom of students and this one student needs everything read aloud to them. You don't always have the time to sit with them or find somebody to go and sit with them and read all those questions. Well, Formative has that option for you to be able to add in an audio feature. So I'm going to bring up just a blank Formative over here. So up at the top, when you type in your title, can be whatever you want it to be, you go to add that instruction block. This little plus sign on the side, you have that option to add audio. So this can be something simple. It can be you just recording yourself, reading those directions out loud. This feature is available on every type of question. You can add that in for that individual question, as well as if you have answer choices. So thinking about this is a multiple selection question, I can add in that audio so they can even hear those answer options and your students do not have to worry about, all right, cool, I heard the question, I was able to understand the question, but now I don't know what any of the answers are. You can add that in right there. When you go to view responses, I'm going to bring up a Formative that has some responses in it. And you want to give your students some feedback. You go ahead, you click on that student, brings up their answer over here. Under that type feedback, you see that little plus sign again. So once again, you're able to add that audio feedback. So again, your students can actually hear your feedback versus trying to read what you wrote. And if you choose to do a video feedback, you can do that as well. Now thinking about how we can use that audio feature for student responses. Sometimes we get those students who they really struggle with coming up with sentences when writing, or their handwriting just is really poor, they have awful spelling, and getting a short answer question from them is very difficult. So what you can always do as a question type is you can add in this free response question type. This will give your students flexibility in responding. Those who want to just type in an answer are able to type in an answer. let me go over to preview as a student. So they would see this box. They can type in their answer if they want to type in an answer. They can click that plus sign. If they want to show you a video demonstrating that they understand the concept, that they can answer your question, they can add a video of themselves. They can also just respond via audio. Again, this is perfect for those students who they really struggle with putting sentences together or spelling, and you just want to see if they know the content. Have them respond via audio. This can also be used as free response option as a way to push your GT students. So maybe you want your GT students to be a little more creative with their response, and you give them some flexibility. They can do whatever they would like in this area. So another common accommodation, especially for those students with reading difficulties such as dyslexia, is having a colored overlay onto their reading passage. This can be done with Formative. So if you go ahead to your add a new question spot, and let's see, I'm just going to put in a short answer question here. I'm going to toggle on this show your work feature. And then I go into edit background. From edit background, I want to upload a picture. So I'm going to use one that I have. I'm going to upload a document. One that I have of a reading passage. And it's slowly uploading. All right. Then what I do is over here, where you can see your color, you choose whichever color overlay you want. I've had a lot of students have success with a blue overlay. Then I adjust over here to make it see-through like a highlighter. I click on Fill Shapes, then hit OK. Then I go over to my Shape button. I hit the rectangle, and I can draw a rectangle over top all of my words, all of the reading. So that way my students now have a colored overlay for their work. This will make it a lot easier for your students to read, especially if they normally use some type of colored overlay when they are reading physical books. Just make sure you hit that check mark to save that. So then when your students go in, preview this as a student again, they click on that show your work and they can see it with that colored overlay. All right, so next we're gonna look at when we go to assign a formative. Now, thinking about your students, not every student is the same. Some students receive some different accommodations, thinking about the questions being read out loud, but there's other students that they don't need that. So you can pick and choose which students you want to assign a formative to. If I go over to this Assign tab, I click on my class, I go down here to Optional Settings. Restrict to individual students, if I toggle that on, I can decide which of my students need to take this formative, or if I select all of them, I can pick which students I do not want to have this formative. Then I just assign it as normal. This is perfect for if you take a normal assignment, whatever you're teaching, whatever needs to be taught, you have that, and then you make a copy of it. So if this is the formative I wanted to assign, I go ahead, click over here, and I click copy. Now I have a copy of this one. So I can edit and adjust this version to fit the needs of certain students. Maybe this is the one where I'm going to add in all of those audio features. Maybe I'm going to adjust the question types. You know, we've got lots of different question types, and some of them are better for scaffolding than others. If I had a fill in the blank question, On my original version, maybe for this one, I want to do the inline choice. It's almost the same as fill in the blank, but instead of my students having to write in that response, they have the option of finding those drop downs and having some choices. So I can adjust those questions based on the needs of my students and then assign that formative to specific students. Any questions? Another super common accommodation is giving your students breaks or chunking their work. So what we now have to offer is sections. So you'll see in between my title and this little plus, the box with my question is a little plus sign. If I hit this plus sign, down at the bottom, I can add a section. So I can title this whatever I want, call it section 1. And we'll say start. Then I can add in my questions. Again, however many questions I feel are appropriate. Okay, I'm going to give them 3 questions, and then I'm going to add in another section. So maybe this one I'm going to call section 2, 5-minute break. So this tells students that when they hit this point, it is okay. Step back, take a break. You can add in as many sections as you would like. And then I'm going to preview that as a student so you can see what it looks like. So they see that section 1. And even up here at the top, you can see the start, section 1, that line indicates the next section. So they scroll down. All they see are those first 3 questions that are within that section. When they're ready to move on, then they hit that next button and they can see, all right, section 2, 5-minute break. Let me go take my break, come back, I answer my 2 questions, and then I can move on. It is a wonderful way to chunk your students' work and make it a little more manageable. We also have a new feature when it comes to assigning. So typically with a formative, if you just assign it as is, no sections, nothing, all your questions are in one big line. That can be really overwhelming for some of your students. If there's something with, 20 questions on it, your students are looking at that going, oh my goodness, this is a lot of work. What am I going to do? And they get overwhelmed really quickly. What we now have, so when I go ahead and click on my class, I go ahead to these adjust settings. I can display each item as a separate page. So that means each individual question pops up on its own, and your students hit next when they're ready. This helps keeps everything in line so they don't miss something, thinking, okay, I'm scrolling. Oh no, I missed a question. This has it one at a time. They're not looking at 5 questions at once. They're not worried about scrolling. They just hit that next button. So any type of special education teacher or interventionist or GT teacher knows that one of the biggest struggles of the job is being able to meet with all your teachers on a regular basis and really be able to collaborate with them. Every time you set a meeting, it seems like something ends up happening. I know when I was a special education teacher, trying to track down all my teachers that worked with my students and actually attend those meetings that we tried to have weekly to keep ourselves updated on progress was hard. We'd have something scheduled and something would come up. It's just how it is in the school world. Well, Formative makes that collaboration so much easier. Under that Classes tab, you can add co-teachers to your class. A co-teacher will be able to see all of your students and all of their information. So if you notice on this class right here, you can see my name is not the main teacher name. So if I expand that out, you can see the list of all the co-teachers added to this class. Means all of these teachers, all of these co-teachers have the ability to see all of these student data. Yes, this is if your school has an account. So what this means is if I'm working with one of these students, I can go in and double check what they're doing. I can see their progress. I can look and see, okay, hey, student one, they missed this question every single time it was given. So maybe this type of question isn't right for them. Maybe we need to adjust the question type. Or it can also tell me, hey, they're really struggling with this standard, this concept. All right, I know as a special education teacher that I need to go back in and work with them on this. I can also assign formatives to any of those students within that class. So if I see an assignment coming up, okay, I'm gonna look at it. All right, I'm gonna make a clone of it and add in the special accommodations for that student. This will make it a lot easier for the gen ed teacher as well to not have to worry about, oh, did I remember to add those in? Because you as special education teacher, as the interventionist, whoever you are working with those students, you have the ability to go in and make sure that those students have their needs being met without having to set meetings every week and worry about, okay, we're not getting this met. How are we going to address it? You have access to everything that class is doing. Now, again, the co-teachers is only for partnership memberships. So if your school has an account with Formative, you can add co-teachers. The way you do this is you click on that little square next to your class, and you go down here to that co-teach button. Enter the email address for your co-teacher. Just make sure that it is the email address that they are using with their Formative account, and you hit that add button. If at any point things change and you don't need them as a co-teacher anymore, you can hit that X and remove them as a co-teacher. Now, I'm sure you notice in here, we've got this little accommodations with an eyeball. This is our brand new feature, which I am very excited about. So if I go ahead, I'm going to hit that eyeball and I scroll down to where my students are. We now have time limit accommodations. So if you have a student that requires time and a half for completing work or double time, whatever it may be, you find that student, you hit that add accommodations button. Right? Toggle that on. And you can choose whatever time accommodation that student requires and hit that update. So this means that anytime you assign a formative that has a time limit, this accommodation will automatically apply for that student. You don't have to worry about going in and adding in a different formative for them, or telling them, hey, it's okay, yours doesn't have a time limit. No worries about that, because you can just add that in and it will automatically apply to their formative account. So that was a ton of information. Does anyone have any questions? Is there anything that you're wondering how you might do in formative, or any specific accommodations or support you might want to give your students that you're not quite sure how it would work? So just a reminder, if you ever want to have any additional trainings, you can always visit our training center, check out any webinars coming up, anything that we may have. You're welcome to join us. Our help center has all sorts of articles. If you're stuck on something, search for whatever you need in that help center. You can also always contact our formative support, and all of those are available through that little question mark. If not, have a wonderful rest of your evening or afternoon, depending on where you are. And the recording for this will be posted later. If you've missed it or just want to review anything, it will be available.